Hey, what's going on? This is Coach Alex with another video breakdown of one of my clients. Today we're looking at Jensen. He's one of our top producing players for the Academia Braves, and he's also begun working with me now with some lessons at DC Baseball Academy. So here we go, jumping back in. It's been a little while since we did one of these, so I'm excited to get back going on it. And this is a great guy to jump back in with. So here we go, starting off. First things first, looking at his setup here. We talked about it early on yesterday. The angle of his wrist. We'll talk about it in a minute more, but the angle of that wrist is going to actually end up resulting in a lot of other funny angles and some things that are it's going to cause some things that we don't really want to have happen. So that's first thing, we're going to have that wrist kind of go from that kind of bent position to more of an upright position. That's going to be really, really important later. So moving on, we have a good wide base here, potentially a little bit too wide. We're going to see that as he begins his stride now, that it's a big stride. So there, we're clearing a good probably 8 to 10 inches with that ankle. So the yellow line here, this one was in the middle of his ankle to start with. Now we're all the way over there. That's a pretty big distance to travel, and it's not really adding anything to our motion. So when we travel that distance, it's really just create a little bit of momentum. Now it's potentially going to pull us off of our center line, which is our nose, our chest, our belly button, all the way on down. Now most of his body is on the left side of that center line, or his left, our right. So we minimize that step just a little bit going forward. Moving on, take our step. We pick up the whole right foot on our rocker pivot step there. As we all know, sometimes we don't play in the best fields. Having that big lift with the foot can sometimes be a negative thing. Sometimes you don't always know where that foot's going to plant, what that substrate's going to look like. So we got to make sure that maybe that becomes just a pivot on the toe and less so a pick up in place. Just something we can consider. Moving forward, keeping going. Here's the spot where we run into our first, what I would call, major issue. And this is going to sound kind of funny, but here he's lifting his leg with his foot and not his knee. So when we look at his foot here, you can already see like a lot of tension in his calf, and the angle of his foot tells me, and now it tells you, that he's really driving from the middle of his foot to bring that leg up, which is not the best way to do it. It's going to result in a shorter stride length for many reasons. So we're going to dive right into that right now. So as we go forward into the video, here we go. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Top of the leg lift. Not a bad position, right? Our knee is nice and belly button height there. Okay, I like that knee position. We can kind of see from the sunlight how it's hitting our side there from the hip that we're beginning to get into hip lead. So that's awesome. But with this foot tucked under the butt there, that can become a problematic position for it, because as we go into our stride, that foot is going to want to be the first thing that gets out front during the stride. When in actuality, we want it to be first our hip, then our knee, and finally our foot at the very, very end. So we're going to fix that. We're going to talk about that more in lessons, but we're going to put a big emphasis on, as we go into that leg lift, we're using the knee to lift and not the foot. When we use the knee to lift, we should see this foot just kind of like relax a little bit, lose some of that tension. The toes are going to drop below the heel, and it'll look a lot more natural and a lot more like the baseball you see on TV. So, moving on. Foot is lifting the leg. Now, the magic of hip lead, the reason that we hip lead, is that it brings this back knee inside the back foot without dropping tremendously. So here, Jensen, because of how he's lifting his front leg, because he's not allowing himself to fall forward with the hip lead, he's not creating this angle on his back leg to really drive forward from. So the body has to find some way to get itself moving forward. It does that, or Jensen is doing that here, by just dropping the back knee. Eventually that back knee is going to drop far enough that he's going to fall into an angle to push off of. So now we see we drop far enough, we're losing about, what are we going to say? That's probably about a foot of height. And now he can finally push off. A lot of things going on here. They're taken away from his velocity, accuracy, and ultimately his overall success as a baseball player. Again, going back to that foot. The foot is super tense, and the foot, we're going to watch right now, as we begin to go forward, the foot drives out front right away. There you go. Bingo. Right away. Foot's out front, and we're going to follow that to its landing. And there we see a toe first landing. Okay, this is a big no-no. Ask yourself when you walk around in everyday life, do you walk heel toe or do you walk toe heel? Get up out of your seat, take a couple steps doing both ways. First heel toe, then toe heel. When you're doing toe heel, feel where your momentum goes. It goes backwards. It does not want to go forward. So we just spent all this time lifting our leg, getting our weight moving forward, and now, because of how we potentially moved our leg in the very beginning, for that very beginning of that leg lift, now we've got a toe touchdown. Now all that momentum ceases, by and large, in the lower half, which is a real big negative. One of Jensen's things that we've talked about is that he's very much a straight line pitcher. He likes to go back to front as fast as he can, instead of really using rotation, which is where he's going to get a lot more out of his body and out of his pitch. So, super important here that we get Jensen landing on his heel first, and then to his toes. Big momentum deal there. Okay, I'm going to rewind just a little bit. So here we go, leg comes up. Good hip bleed. It's getting there. We just got to let him be confident with himself, let him fall with the hip instead of dropping and driving. For me, his top half separation when the ball comes out of the glove is a little bit early. He's bringing the hands apart as the leg goes down. That's not really what I like to teach. I like to teach more of a kind of a late hand, fast hand separation. So at this point in his motion, I like to see his hands still be together. Basically what we want to imagine is as we're having this left heel drive forward to our catcher, if we tied a rope from our heel to our wrist there, as that heel goes forward, that should pull our hands apart. Okay? If we're separating early the way that Jensen is here, what we're going to find, and it does happen to Jensen in this video, what we're going to find is that we have a tendency to open up early. When we open up early, our weight can go out front early. Our shoulders fall early. A lot of negative things can happen when we separate early, especially if we don't have good control over our shoulders and our chest and when we open up versus when we stay closed. So here we go again. Glove side separation kind of out there, and already we're beginning to see this opening up process. So his elbow is on the left side of his body there, on the back side of his back. And that tells me all that momentum is just going to keep pulling him open. All of those scaps are just going to retract, and he's just going to kind of be in that pinched back position, which we know is not the best position to pitch from. Here we get to our landing again. Looking at that foot, toe first, then heel. We haven't even gotten to our true landing yet, which is when the heel gets down. I'll show you true landing right now. So here we go, and right there's like our true landing. So toes hit the ground, continue that weight transfer forward, and there, where that foot begins to get really solidly into the turf, that's our true landing. And at true landing, we can see Jensen is already all the way opened up. Okay, chest is wide open, glove is tucked, elbow is kind of low back here, glove is kind of low back here, and chin's nice and level. So there's a lot of good things going on here. If we just talk about the good stuff, I wouldn't be doing my job. But what we're going to see is that due to this early opening up, that his back foot's going to leave the ground super early. Okay, in fact, so early that it's right there. Okay, one frame, and we've gone from toe down to toe up in the backside. Now, put yourself in a pitcher's position. You're trying to throw that ball 80 to 90 times at 85 to 90% max effort, and you're trying to throw strikes and beat guys. Now, imagine trying to do that from this position right here, where your back foot's in the air, you don't really have your shoulders and hips lined up, and then this alignment from our knee to our ankle, the whole body's a little bit off kilter, a little bit off center. You can get it done. Jensen does get it done with this motion, but it's about maximizing our potential, about getting to a point where we can compete comfortably in high school and beyond. And right now, that's our goal, Jensen, and we're going to get there mostly just by with talking about the leg lift and by evening out some of these angles. So, again, going forward, the ideal position for me in this situation would be to have that back foot on the ground, and we're going to get there by one, not opening up quite so early with the elbow, and also by keeping the weight back longer at landing. So again, we're going to rewind just a little bit. At the landing, right there, you see the shoulders go out front early. Shoulders are kind of almost in front of the midsection there. And now we land very heavy on the front side. We're definitely vast majority of our weight over that front hip there. At this point in the motion, I would like to see the small majority, probably about 65% of our weight, over the back hip. The reason being there, when we do that, it gives us more time to turn our hips. It gives us more time to turn our hips. It also gives our arm more time to work, get up into a good arm slot. And it's also, even walking it back one step before, it's going to let us be more comfortable separating our hands later. So again, got to keep the weight back. That's going to help with separation. It's going to help with opening up. It's going to help with kind of what we call being stacked, which is when our shoulders are level over our hips, are level over our ankles. It's the most athletic, stable position that we can be in. And Jensen is almost there, but we've just got to make sure that we keep working on it to really, really lock that down. Okay. So again, moving on. Looking at this frame right here, okay, we've got our shoulders tilted at, almost 45 degrees there, maybe, a little bit less. Elbow is sub-shoulder, which we touched a little bit. Jensen's never had any arm issues. We're going to keep talking about it. Potentially at his age, we should be throwing with that elbow above the shoulder just slightly to, minimize risk of injury. But good, strong kid, never had any arm injuries. We're going to kind of put this one on the back burner for the time being. Good release point. Okay. We get out front with the ball. Nice pronation through our finish. Head's nice and stable. We're pivoting around that left leg. A lot of really good stuff going through the finish here. So despite the things in the beginning of the motion that could potentially detract from the pitch, we end up in a really good kind of baseball card position right here. So Jensen's a good pitcher. He's going to figure out a way to get it done, produce good results. We're just trying to make those good results great results. So keeping going, finishing up the video. Nice and balanced, one step to balance, glove out in front of us here. A lot of good things going on. This video is just the hot stuff that we're going to go over. Last night we sat and talked for about 15 minutes and kind of made our practice plan, what we're going to do going forward, and I think we're both pretty happy with where that's going to go. So one last time through, rewinding through the motion, watching in reverse. It's always kind of fun if you've never done it. Video yourself and rewind it backwards. Okay. So one more time through. Maybe narrow up that beginning stance. Get that glove angle a little bit different so that we're not here and we're not hooking as we separate. Too big a step in my opinion. Narrow that step up just a little bit. Pivot the right toes. Don't lift up the whole foot because you never know what your mound surface is going to be like. Relax that left foot. Lift the leg with the knee. Don't lift the leg with the foot. Super, super important because that affects everything going forward. We've got our hip lead going on now. Let it happen. Let himself fall forward. Let that back knee kind of fall into a good angle to push from. Don't let it just kind of drop and drive like we see here. Not dropping and driving. Using that good hip lead and kind of that fall and drive is going to let us keep our weight back better. The weight stays back better. We're going to be more comfortable with later separation, which means that we're not going to open up as early. Our weight stays back again. We're going to then have that good heel-toe landing. It's not toe-heel. Here, if we don't open up early, that back foot stays on the ground. Our shoulders and hips are probably staying stacked a little bit longer. We're using more of that rotation, that torque that really drives our velocity. But at the end of all of it, Jensen's a strong, athletic kid, and he's able to get into that nice finish position, good pronation. Pronation is when our hand turns like this, so as we throw the baseball, as that thumb crosses the belly button, everyone's hand should be pronating on most of their pitches. That's how we use muscles to slow the arm down, and not ligaments and tendons and joints as much. And again, awesome job right there. Jensen's a great baseball player. He's got a lot of promise. He's going to an awesome tournament just after Christmas. So we're working on getting that motion tuned up for that and getting him into a position where he can really begin to compete and get some good looks for college. So thanks for joining us. If you have any questions, hit me up on my Instagram, and we'll see you guys next time. Thanks. Bye.